Begin script. Hey, you asked me to be direct, so I will be. You've got a metal sign. You've got a custom t-shirt. You've got a 460-page book that you've clearly put real work into. And you're standing there asking people if they're ready for revolution. I respect the conviction. I do. But I need to tell you something that might sting. Most people are not going to care. Not because they're stupid, not because they're sheep, but because you haven't given them a reason to stop. Your signs are either cryptic, Pacifica is prepared, or they're abstract, tyranny rules your life. Those words mean something to you. To a stranger walking past, they mean nothing. Or worse, they sound like a meme. Here's the hard truth. You are asking for revolution without telling anyone what the revolution is against. You're using a name, Pacifica, that nobody recognizes. You're holding a book that nobody will read before deciding whether to talk to you. And you're wearing a custom AI-designed shirt that makes you look like you're playing a role, not living a conviction. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're not persuasive. Let me break it down. First, your signs. The first one says, "Are you ready for revolution? Pacifica is prepared." That assumes people already know what Pacifica is. They don't. They'll think it's a band or a yoga studio. The second sign says, "American justice is a scam. Authority, tyranny rules your life." That's just rage. It doesn't tell anyone what you want, what you're against, or why they should care. Second, the book. You've got Locke, you've got Spooner, you've got the Anti-Federalists. That's serious reading, but nobody at a protest is going to flip through 460 pages of political philosophy while standing on pavement. The book is evidence of your preparation. It is not a tool for persuasion. Third, the shirt. Anything custom made with AI art screams, "Look at me," and not in a good way. People will ask about the shirt before they ask about your ideas. That's a distraction you don't need. Here's what you're doing right. You're willing to stand alone. You're willing to be unpopular. You've actually read the sources instead of just repeating slogans. You understand that the system isn't left or right, it's top versus bottom. That's real. That's rare. But here's what you need to hear. You are trying to unplug people from the matrix. That's what you said. Morpheus didn't hand Neo a book and a sign. He asked a question. Do you want to know what the matrix is? Then he showed him. Your signs don't ask questions. They announce conclusions. You are skipping the part where you invite people to wonder. The oracle said, being the one is just like being in love. No one can tell you you're in love. You just know it. You can't tell people they're ready for revolution. They have to feel it. Your signs try to tell them. That's why most people will walk past. So let me give you the percentages, because you asked for honesty. 60 to 70% of people will completely ignore you. Eyes down, headphones in, walking faster. They're exhausted. They have rent to pay, kids to feed, appointments to keep. They don't have bandwidth for a stranger with a metal sign. 15 to 20% will be mildly annoyed. They'll roll their eyes or make a joke to their friend. Another libertarian with a printer. 10 to 15% will be actively hostile. They'll call you a traitor. They'll tell you to go back to Russia. They'll say, "F you," loud enough for others to hear. That's not because you're wrong. It's because revolution and tyranny trigger a deep patriotic reflex in people who've been taught their whole lives that America is good, and anyone who says otherwise is an enemy. And then there's the last group. 3 to 5%, maybe less. These are the ones who stop. They ask, "What's Pacifica?" They want to know more. These are your people. These are the other Neos. You will talk to maybe 1 out of every 20 people who see you. That's not failure. That's the nature of awakening. Morpheus told you that. Many of them are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. So what do? Here's my advice. Stop leading with Pacifica. Nobody knows what that means. Lead with the problem. One sentence. Something any American can understand. Like, "I never agreed to this government. Neither did you." That's a door. That's an invitation. That's a splinter in their mind. Then ask them a question. Does that bother you? Not, "Are you ready for revolution?" Not, "Tyranny rules your life." Just, "Does that bother you?" Let them answer. Listen to them. That's how you find the ones who are already waking up. The book, keep it in your bag. Bring it out only if someone asks for more. The shirt, wear something plain. Let your words do the work, not your costume. And the signs, simplify. One clear sentence. No all caps rage. No cryptic names. You asked if you want to be right or effective. Those are different things. Being right feels good alone. Being effective requires you to meet people where they are, not where you wish they were. You have the philosophy. You have the courage. Now you need the patience and the humility to let people come to the door themselves. You can't kick it down for them. Morpheus said, I'm trying to free your mind, Neo. But I can only show you the door. You're the one who has to walk through it. Your sign is the door. But right now, you've painted it black, covered it in symbols, and locked it from your side. Make it simple, make it inviting, and then wait. That's my feedback, take it or leave it. But I gave it to you straight, because you asked me to. End script.
Thank you for uploading these two extraordinary documents. I've read both carefully, the new Declaration of Independence for the Pacifica of Sovereign Persons and the draft Constitution of Pacifica and Sovereign Persons. Given our preceding conversation about why syncretic, natural law-based political expression is invisible in mass protests, and why independent political thought appears absent, these works now play a clear and striking role. Here is my analysis. The role of these two works. 1. They are the very sign you said you never see, written at scale. Remember your hypothetical sign. Just naturalist. Civil government. Now. You wondered why nobody carries it. These documents are that sign, expanded into tens of thousands of words. They represent someone, or a small group, doing exactly what you observed was missing. Deriving a political system from first principles, natural law, natural rights, natural justice. Rejecting both democratic and republican paradigms as a false two-party dichotomy. Proposing a hybrid syncretic system, progressive libertarian, social democratic republican, distributist, libertarian. Attempting to come to their own conclusion rather than following party propaganda. So these documents embody the independent political thought you argued almost never appears. 2. They are a case study in why such thought remains invisible. Reading these works, you immediately see why you don't see that sign at protests. Feature effect. Extreme length, approximately 180,000 plus words, cannot be reduced to a chant or slogan. Dense philosophical language assumes familiarity with Locke, Aquinas, natural law, Roman civil law, common law, distributism. Hyper-specific policy, e.g., ternary logic systems, 50 Hz AC power standards, Bitcoin forks as currency, appeals to almost no existing coalition. Anti-system framing rejects both parties, rejects taxes, rejects most government authority. Unusual proposed rituals, peace pipe past left, psychedelics before war declarations, easily dismissed as eccentric. These documents are intellectually serious but politically non-viable in any existing structure. They prove that independent, syncretic natural law thought exists, but it exists outside the protest industrial complex, outside electoral politics, and outside mass media visibility. 3. They diagnose exactly what you described, from the inside. The new declaration explicitly names the problem you observed. The Democrats and Republicans, two faces of the same coin, have conspired to entrench their own power, have caused numerous and frightening usurpations, setting the stage for the public to divide amongst themselves, and have instilled the mentality that voting for alternatives never works, therefore you should not vote for them, thereby eliminating any possibility of such alternative arising, through ballot access barriers, media collusion, and campaign finance manipulation. And the false left-right Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative choices paraded in front of the good people of the world are in general serving the same interests, with little exception or choice to true representation. The authors are not naive about why independent thought fails in the current system. They understand institutional lock-in, media gatekeeping, and the psychological effect of the two-party paradigm. The documents are written from inside the frustration you described. 4. They attempt to solve the invisible sign problem by building an entire parallel structure. You ask why nobody carries the sign. The answer implicit in these documents is because carrying a sign is insufficient. The problem is structural. The solution is to build a new civil government from first principles, not to protest within the existing one. Hence the draft constitution, not a manifesto, not a set of demands, but a complete alternative legal framework. This is the logical endpoint of your critique. If the system is irredeemably captured by two parties, then the only coherent response is to declare independence moral, political, and eventually territorial, and constitute a new republic. The document even names a timeline: Cascadia Plan for 2028 CE and Pacifica Plan of Project 2033. 5. They reveal the tension between just naturalism and practical politics. Here is the central tension exposed by these works. Just naturalism, theory, political reality. Rights are unalienable, self-evident, not granted by government. Protests require slogans, not syllogisms. Taxation is theft, funding via voluntary donation and state-owned enterprises. Existing states have no such model. No compromise with unjust laws. Mass movements require compromise and coalition. Jury nullification, citizen courts, decentralized militias requires mass legal literacy most people don't have. Rejection of all licensing, registration, permits. Existing institutions won't recognize this. The documents are intellectually consistent but strategically silent on how to move from a handful of ghost annons to a mass movement. That gap, between philosophical correctness and practical politics, is exactly why you don't see the sign. Summary: the role these works play. Role explanation. Proof of concept: they demonstrate that independent, syncretic, natural law-based political thought does exist, it just doesn't look like protest signs. Diagnosis: they articulate precisely the two-party lock-in, media collusion, and psychological conditioning you observed. Alternative: they offer a complete parallel legal and political system, not reformist demands. Cautionary example: they show why such thought remains invisible: length, complexity, anti-system framing, and lack of a mobilization strategy. Living artifact: they are the sign you asked about, just written in constitutional language rather than cardboard. Final observation. You are not wrong to notice the absence of such signs. But these documents suggest the absence is not because people are incapable of independent thought. It is because 1. Independent thinkers who reach natural law conclusions often conclude that protest is futile and that only building parallel institutions makes sense. 2. The labor required to produce a coherent alternative is enormous. Most people understandably don't have the time, training, or resources. 3. Visibility requires simplification, but simplification betrays the very nuance that distinguishes natural law thinking from party-line slogans. So these documents are simultaneously vindication of your observation, you were right that this voice is nearly absent from protests, and refutation of your implied conclusion, it does exist, it just lives in text files, not on the streets. If you ever want to carry that sign, these documents are the closest existing approximation. The question they leave unanswered is, how does a just naturalist, anti-two-party, syncretic political philosophy become visible without being reduced to propaganda? That is the problem these works inherited from the original American founders, and have not yet solved.